Hi everyone. Today we'll be looking at a type of reading question common on the SAT, reading closely questions. Now, sometimes the official name the College Board gives to an SAT question does not help you better understand the question. The College Board is notorious for giving confusing and just arcane names that don't actually help you understand what the question is about. However, sometimes the name that the College Board gives to a question actually helps you to clearly understand what the question is about. This is one of those instances. You're probably thinking to yourself now, duh, of course we have to read closely. But still me for a second. Sometimes in the pressure of the test, you might forget what kind of question the question is or what the question is about, and that way you can actually lose points for questions that you would otherwise get right. So let's get a sense of the anatomy of this question to help us better understand and get it right. So what are reading closely questions? Reading closely questions are essentially questions that demand one thing above all, that you go back to the passage and look for what is either stated directly or implied indirectly to answer the question. That's it. That's where the reading closely comes from. You read the passage closely to look for what's stated directly or implied indirectly. Let's take a look at a few examples to give us a sense or a feel for what these kinds of questions are. This is an example of a reading closely question from an actual SAT test. It says, which reaction does Akira most fear from Chi? Now, Akira and Chi are two characters in the passage. However, to get this question right, you would have to go back to the passage and look for where there was a discussion about Akira's reaction to Chi. You'd have to read closely for what the passage says about that. This right here is another reading closely question. It says, the authors indicate that people value gift giving because they feel it. Similarly, you go back to the passage and you look for where there is a discussion about the way people value gift giving. Now, a useful aside to note here is that the questions on the reading section of the SAT are typically asked in order of their appearance in the passage. In other words, the question number 13, for example, would probably refer to something at the beginning of the passage, and question number 18 would probably refer to something towards the end of the passage. So that can give you a clue to where you should be searching for. But as I'm going to indicate in another video, you should actually be reading the passage in a manner that allows you to understand where the different important points are in the passage. That said, what's important for our purposes here is about how to think through this question or how to answer it. You need to go back to the passage, look for where the authors talk about why people value gift giving, and answer the question. A final example. The passage indicates that the assumption made by gift givers in lines 41 to 44 may be similar sorts of question. It's a reading closely question. Actually, it's a little bit easier because in this case, you are told where to go look for what's stated or implied. You have to go look in lines 41 to 44. You read lines 41 to 44 rather, and based on what's stated there or what's implied there, you answer the question. This is a good opportunity for us to demonstrate actually what I mean by reading closely. Now, in the actual passage, line 41 starts about around here and up until line 44, which ends about around here. So let's read between those 2 points to give us a sense of what it would be like to read lines 41 to 44. In the present research, we propose a unique psychological explanation for this overspending problem, i.e., that gift givers equate how much they spend with how much recipients will appreciate the gift. So this right here is the assumption the question refers to. Gift givers equating how much they spend with how much the recipient will appreciate the gift is the assumption gift givers make. See, the passage says, or the question says rather, the passage indicates that the assumption made by gift givers may be, so this is the assumption it's referring to. This right is the assumption. However, this doesn't help us answer the question. Like I always tell the students I work with, the key is to read before and read after. You read closely, yes, but you don't read closely just in where is indicated in the question. You read closely before and after. Why? One word: context. To have a context of what's going on. So let's try that. Let's read before. It says, what is surprising is that gift givers have considerable experience acting as both gift givers and gift recipients, but nevertheless tend to overspend each time they set out to purchase a meaningful gift. In the present research, we propose a unique psychological explanation for this overspending problem. That is, that gift givers equate how much they spend with how much recipients will appreciate the gift. The more expensive the gift, the stronger a gift recipient's feeling of appreciation. Although a link between gift price and feelings of appreciation might seem intuitive to gift givers, such an assumption may be unfounded. Do you see that? So finally we understand what the passage is indicating about the assumption. Remember, what is stated directly or implied indirectly. Here, in this case, it's stated directly. We see what the passage is saying about the assumption. It's saying the assumption may be unfounded. Remember, we had to read closely to find this, and we had to read beyond just the line numbers that the question referred to. And if we're in any doubt, we can read further. It says, indeed, we propose that gift recipients will be less inclined to base their feelings of appreciation on the magnitude of a gift than gift givers assume. Once again, it's telling us that what the gift givers assume is not right. Check that out. I just tried to explain it to myself, and I used the phrase, is not right. This is also a very important strategy for the SAT. Answering the question for yourself before looking at the option gives you a sense of what's right before you encounter the deliberately misleading options that the College Board puts in front of you. Now let's go to the options. Option A says insincere. Well, what does insincere mean? Insincere is a word like dishonest. Well, based on what we just read closely, this is not right. That's not what the passage indicates about the assumption. The passage indicates, as I said before, that the assumption is not right. Unreasonable. That sounds tempting. It might sound like, well, if something is not right, it's unreasonable. But if you look closely, unreasonable actually means something like illogical. Not incorrect, but just doesn't make sense, doesn't follow logic. So it's not right once again. Take a look at that. I want you to notice something. These two options are both negative things. They're the kinds of things you would pick if you did not read closely. It would kind of make sense. It would make common sense for you to say, oh, it's unreasonable. But it's the reading closely that helps you to avoid these deliberately misleading choices. Option C says incorrect. Oh, now that sounds very promising. Incorrect sounds exactly like is not right, or unfounded, or that the assumption is not what you would expect. So we put a check mark next to that. Number D says substantiated. Similar to A and B, it's not just what we've gotten from reading closely. Substantiated means to be able to give evidence for. It's not even in the general area of what we've read from this line right here to this line right here. Nothing about what we've read so far would support substantiated. So that's wrong. So that helps us to then settle on C. But remember, we did not go on our gut feeling. We read closely. We read before and read after. and found what the passage was saying about the assumption. Now, this detailed analysis, of course, is just for the purposes of this video. What you should do is you should practice this on several reading closely questions, and when you find yourself in a test scenario, you'll be able to pull this off in a matter of seconds because you know intuitively what to do. I encourage you to, of course, go ahead and practice this and to ask me any questions you have in the comment section about how to approach reading closely questions. Thank you.